Warning. This podcast contains spoilers for Season 4, Episode 8 of Succession on HBO, Season 2, Episode 7 of Yellowjackets on Showtime. Hello! My name is Jason Concepcion.
And I'm Rosie Knight.
And welcome to X-Ray Vision, the Crooked Media podcast, where we dive deep into your favorite shows, movies, comics, and pop culture.
In this week's very intense episode, it's market moves. And they're moving all over the place. Up, down, all around. Terrible, terrible times in Succession. Season 4, Episode 8. Trigger warning. It's too much like the real world.
It's too much.
It's too much. In the airlock. It's getting intense in the forest. In Yellowjackets, Season 2, Episode 7. You thought last week's episode had a bummer ending. Wait till you see this week's episode. And in Nerd Out, we've got a Yellowjackets theory from listener Nick.
Coming up next, Market Moves. I want to be the CEO. I want to do it all alone. Rigging votes is my real test. Beating Lucas is my cause. I will elect a president to live in the house so white. In turn, he'll regulate, kill the deal from inside. Market Moves! That's right, it's Market Moves, folks, the number one source for economic prosperity. Let's grow that bank account, folks. We're talking about Episode 8, America Decides, the Succession television program directed by Andre Parek. I hope that's right. Written by Jesse Armstrong himself. And it's a tense one, and I think I speak for you, Rosie, everybody on our staff, and every listener of the Market Moves financial success audio program when I say I hope our next presidential election is just like that. I hope it happens just that
like
way.
This is the American dream.
If you're in line, folks, stay in line. Because we're changing the paradigm. It's election day. Tom, just like the future of American democracy, is a little bit on edge. He's under tremendous pressure to deliver massive ratings, an explosion of ratings, lest he lose his job. You know, this is the first post-Logan election night at ATN, and it's got to be big. Ken knows the stakes. It's the post, as we mentioned, you know, his dad is gone. He is now the co-CEO along with Rome, and so they've got to really make it happen. So he really puts the spurs to Tom, telling him, like, it's got to be huge, it's got to be big. Tom, in turn, is toxic and abusive as we like to his staff. We love that. We love to see efficiency. We love to see fear. We love to see lots of people fired and the remaining employees to live in a state of constant anxiety.
That's capitalism, folks.
That's what we love. And so Tom, really rides them, and he tells them, like, let's put the most mentally unwell people on the air because that's what gets the ratings, and that's what our audience loves. His much more experienced in terms of election staff says to Tom, hey, your footwear, you're going to be on your feet all night. You got to have comfortable shoes. Those shoes aren't going to be comfortable enough. And then Tom is also worried that he's going to have to piss his pants, like an astronaut. Which leads us to our first prompt, Rosie. When you have to get comfortable, total maximum comfort level, because you got to settle in for like a long drive, or you got to be on your feet for a long period of time because there's a mega, mega, mega important election that's going, and you are running the coverage, and maybe you won't get to a bathroom because if you go to the bathroom, some malfunction will happen and nobody will be there to fix it. What is your go-to comfort outfit?
Whew. If I'm running, as I am, multi-headed corporations, I'll just wear whatever I want. I'll wear some Viore sweatpants.
Yes!
I did like, I will take a note. I liked that when they showed different people who worked at ATN's feet, all of them were wearing comfortable slippers. I will join them. I will wear a big, cushy, expensive Ugg boot. I will be extremely comfortable. And then you know what? Just to add a little chaos, just in case I got to go on a Zoom call, got to fire a few hundred people over the internet, I'll just wear like a button-down shirt and tie. It's pure chaos. Ooh. But I think it does double duty.
I, for no reason at all, am going to echo your take and say that I would wear the Viore Sunday joggers on my pants, and also I'd wear one on each arm, one pair on each arm.
Oh, I love that.
I wouldn't wear like a single pair on my upper body because then it would constrict my movement. But I'd have one pair on each arm, the pair the normal way on my legs, and I have another pair on my head, and then I would just kind of wrap maybe 5 or 6 of them around my torso to kind of keep that covered, because I believe in modesty, and I don't want to show too much skin, but I want to be extremely comfortable. And I find that the Viore fabrics, again, just this is completely my unbiased opinion, are the most comfortable fabrics perhaps ever created by human hands. I think you'd have to go to like some kind of fantasy world where elves create magical garments to find a garment that is quite as comfortable as that. It's really true.
I like that. I think you could intimidate people with the amount of extra legs that you had kind of flailing around your body. You could stuff them if you wanted to make it look like you had multiple arms, some kind of Goro intimidation technique. Or you could use them to hide important documents as you go around doing the inevitable shady things that you would need to do.
This is all stuff that I may or may not do. I don't want to lock myself in or
can't commit. Can't
say
commit.
anything that could be used against me later. But I think that's right. And you always want to keep people guessing as to where your limbs are. Greg has apparently been hanging out with Mattson. He's been clubbing. He's
Gregory
been clubbing
Peggery
with Mattson. He spent the evening at some very lurid establishment, apparently forcing senile older men to dance, which is so troubling.
It sounds absolutely haunting, but Greg is loving it because Greg is moving up the desperate succession ladder, and he is climbing higher than some may expect.
I gotta tell you, I agree with you, and I think what would be the most surprising outcome this season? You know, you could imagine this character or that character rising high or bottoming out, but I think truly one of the most other than Willa, Greg the Egg ending up on top somehow or near the top would be so shocking. And I gotta tell you,
it's looking likely.
I feel like it might happen.
I agree, and I think it's something that from the very earliest days of the historical documents that have shown us what has occurred in the Roy family, many viewers have thought, wouldn't it be so ironic and tasty and delectable if strange cousin Greg, who may or may not even really be related to anyone and who is just absolutely useless, wouldn't it make a lot of sense for him to end up on top? Isn't that the topsy-turvy world we live in? And I do believe that this episode, we may be getting there. I need to say as well, we all know, look, I have said I understood why Shiv aligned with Mattson, but we learn in this episode that, as many people suspected, myself included, Mattson is a live wire.
He is.
He does not care. He will tell Gregory Peggery some important, very secret information that will end up causing a big problem, and he doesn't even care. He'll do it while he's dancing with a sexy old senile man.
Oh, gosh. Exit polls suggest that while it is uncomfortably close for those of you who, wouldn't want a fascist president.
Yeah, that the small minority.
Right. That it looks as if Jimenez and Evis are going to take the night. The exit polls are looking good. It's important we learn that the ATN folks in the know who know about the poll numbers not leak that or even hint at it on air because they could lose their election certification something or other. And also it would be seen as an attempt to swing the election for a candidate. And I got to tell you, you don't want to be seen doing that.
You do not want to be seen doing that. But my favorite thing about this information that they are guided with is that it then becomes essentially a battle plan of how they can do just that.
Yeah.
And it is impeccable that they took the advice and were like, that sounds great. Let's do it.
Shiv is, of course, pulling for Jimenez, while Roman is marching and seek hailing for Hermenkin. Shiv FaceTimes Lucas. They're still working together, of course, as we just mentioned. She wants Lucas to release a statement about the Indian numbers to get in front of that news. And this is a great time to do it because the nation is going to be absolutely entranced by the election and the results of the election. This is the time to just news dump. Lucas drops that he has, been discussing India with his team and also, Greg.
Yeah, cash. Just cash.
Just casually.
Just letting the biggest snake in the world, the most power-hungry, wild person, just let him know in a club where there was definitely plenty of other people who could have overheard. And it's not the only thing.
If they were not hard of hearing as this older gentleman may have been.
True.
I think when you are clutching an older man who doesn't want to dance to your chest and making him dance, he's probably not listening to
his focus maybe.
His focus is not going to be on the business details that are kind of moving back and forth. Shiv is, of course, alarmed by this. Like, why the fuck are you talking to Greg?
Mm-hmm.
What are you talking to Greg? And Lucas is basically just like, hey, here's a pitch. What about we just never say anything about the numbers? Prompt number 2, Rosie. What is the best day to release bad news?
The best day to release bad news, and I say this as many years as a journalist in the entertainment business, I will tell you, the best day to release bad news is at like 5 p.m. on a Friday night. That's the plan, baby. That's what you got to do. If you see a studio announce some news right then, they do not want you to see it. Now, obviously, 24-hour news cycle, internet news cycle is kind of different, but that is generally the best rule. Of course, Shiv is absolutely right here. It's also great to release it within a very busy 24-hour news cycle. Madsen is very unlikely to become the main character of the news here. Nobody's going to care. Oh, some fluffed up numbers. Like, that's normal. That's what tech people do. That's not going to make the news when you have people setting mail-in vote offices on fire and voting in a literal fascist. So Shiv is not wrong, but if you're looking to drop a press release you want no one to see, go for end of business day Friday.
Listen, it's absolutely a classic. It's tried and true. If I say we're going to be charged with insider trading, I bring that up for absolutely no reason.
Definitely not going to happen, of course.
It's never going to happen.
This is where you trade on the outside, make that outside money.
I trade. It's all outside. All the trading I do is outdoors, even
outdoors, touching grass and trading at the same time.
Never indoors or
even
inside.
Been inside.
That's
when
right.
I traded.
No roof. That has always been.
That's the rule.
The
3
ceiling
walls, no
is
roof.
the roof, and there is no roof. That's the limit.
Yeah.
What's the limit?
Love
Sky's
that.
the limit because there's no roof. I'm not inside.
Roof,
I'm outside.
no ceiling.
That said, I always like to peg bad news to whatever holiday is around, if there is one.
I was going to say long weekend is great too.
If it's calendar dependent, I like to do like 11:15 p.m. Eastern on New Year's Eve.
Oh, that's great.
That's something
perfect.
like that. Or I wait until someone famous dies, someone famous and beloved, and then I just kind of slip it in there. You know?
That's really good. In between the obits and the memorials, and just kind of like, insider trading, I lost $3 billion, but love that guy. Rest in peace.
This is a big phone call episode. Shiv takes a call from Nate. Nate is very, very nervous, but he's also feeling hopeful, because of the exit polls. We learned that a future Jimenez administration would not have an issue with the Gojo deal. They just basically rubber stamp it and let it go, and we love that for business. Shiv is promising a new ATN for a new administration. Hey, we're going to be kinder, we're going to be gentler, we're going to be better, we're going to be people are going to love us. It's going to be great. We're going to be very, very, very lefty.
Yeah, and Nate makes a great point where he's like, well, then why aren't you reporting on the domestic terrorism that is occurring tonight that we're starting to get rumblings of on social media? Someone is attacking voting offices where they are counting mail-in ballots, and what they thought was an electrical fire is actually looks like it was vandalism. And Shiv's like, yeah, of course, we'll definitely gotta cover that.
Well, what is fire? Who are people who set
It's just
fires?
an element.
What is
It's
a
nature.
what is it? What is a person? How does a person set a fire? Could it be an accident? Could what is a flammable material? These are all questions that we could ask, and we will ask, and will be asked over the course of this episode. Any question but who set this fire, I think, is important to ask.
That's very important. That question no one needs to know.
Ken takes a call from his ex-wife, Rava.
Oh.
She is panicked. Of course, last episode we learned their daughter, Sophie, who is Indian, I believe, was pushed by a Ravenhead person or a Mencken person, and they made some sort of, kind of like racist uttering. And so they're already on edge. And now there's this SUV following them, and Ken is like, "Oh, that's mine. Sorry, I put private security on you, and I didn't. I should have told you, but I didn't mention it." P.S. Everything I do, including secretly putting armed men on your tail, is because I love you, and we're working on making it a kinder, gentler world for you, my beautiful daughter Sophie, who I love very much. Maybe we'll see. Ken then calls Nate to get on the line with candidate Jimenez, and he's like, hey, Dan Jimenez, when you win, maybe you should look at tech for no reason at all.
Yeah, no reason at all. That definitely not because you should look at it to kill the Gojo deal.
I'm
Like
just
no
saying,
reason, no reason. Just look at it.
is-
Tech's dodgy. It's bad. Bad things are happening
Huge force in our world, and maybe you should look at it. Prompt number 3. I believe, although I may be wrong, that this is the first time that we see candidate Jimenez. Certainly this season, it's the first time we actually see him. This is fiction, of course, a work of fiction, this show that we take very seriously. So seriously, we've modeled an entire fake show after this show. But is it really, let me ask you this, is it realistic to elect someone for president who is not 89 years old? Rosie, that is the third prompt. Come on. You got to be 89, 90, 91, high 80s at least, right? To be president?
It is part of the American rule, the
Right.
American law. I think in the Constitution it says you've got to be like 10 years away from dying or you can't be the president, right? That's a big part of the American rule.
Because you don't want anybody in there who hasn't lived a full, and I mean full, like right to the edge life, like right to the end. That candle is all the way down. You don't want them thinking about just life stuff because they've done it now.
They've done it. They're not going to be distracted. They've
By
spent
life?
many years. They've lived through multiple depressions. They have played and manipulated the markets through those depressions and made very, very, very large amounts of money. And now they're successful. They're in their 80s. They're out here. They're being presidents. They're not showing up for votes. You know how it is. They're
What do
old.
you
It's
think-
tiring
okay.
to be old.
What's your ideal age for a president-elect?
102.
I like it. I think
Lots of life experience, lived
think
a
that's right.
century. They remember before these things existed, like tech. They can go up
Right.
against tech. They say, what's tech? They don't have Facebook. They're
I'm
not easily
gonna say-
manipulated.
I'm going to say with no cybernetic enhancements, no kind of cryo tubes or anything like that, just like a raw dogging life, like human being that just lived, without any kind of special medical technology things to keep them going. I'm going to say, about 100, like 102, 103.
I think so. I think that's the sweet spot.
That's the
That's
sweet
what
spot.
everybody wants.
So that you can get out of your second term by like 108, 109, and then quietly pass away,
Yeah.
happily. Rome heads to the Mencken lair to meet with the Menckenites. Jared Mencken is pissed that Rome wasn't able to deliver Connor dropping out of the race. And Mencken tells Roman that, you know what? It looks like we're going to lose tonight, but I like it. I want to lose.
I'm very focused on losing.
I'm very focused on losing. I think losing is winning. I think the new winning is losing, because when I lose, I can throw just dirt on the entire process and say, hey, look how rigged this entire process is.
Mm-hmm.
And that will set me up to win the next time around.
Yeah, he wants to destabilize the American government and economy so that he can take it when it's vulnerable. Very historical precedent for that. Don't Google who's done that in the past. You don't need to do that.
That's right.
But it has been done. It has been done. And I will say, this is a scene that introduces one of the best word uses this episode that will continue to go. He wants Roman to help him with the narrative. And you will now hear the word narrative come up in every other sentence. Everybody is worried about the narrative. Jared's dream narrative is that he was maligned and oppressed and pushed to the side because he was the real working man's candidate. But obviously that narrative could change. And ATN, sadly or gladly, depending where your stocks are, for everyone, has a big handle on shaping that narrative, as we will see.
Back at ATN headquarters, Greg is asking Tom, important questions about his role with the company going forward. And Tom is like, where's my fucking coffee, Greg? And Greg is like, hey, man, I just fired 300 people.
I don't do coffee anymore.
It was either 100 people in 3 days or 300 people in a day. Whatever the case may be, I don't do coffee anymore. And Tom makes a very measured statement, a very measured response when he says...
Very realistic, relatable.
Yeah, when he says, listen, if you don't get my coffee, it's going to be chaos. And that chaos is going to spread, and China's going to invade Taiwan, and that means World War III, and that means the nukes are going to fly, and that means the end of all complex life on Earth. And like, do you want to be responsible for that because you didn't get my coffee? And Greg is like, well, in that case, if it's that important, we should do something a little stronger. No? A little more powdery? No? What do you think about that? So, I think very reasonably.
Just completely normal.
Completely reasonable thing to do. Greg and Tom snort a little coke off the back of their hands behind a whiteboard.
And Greg has put himself in a terrible situation here because Greg did not want to do drugs.
He didn't want to do coke.
He didn't want to do
drugs. 2 nights in a row.
He didn't want to get addicted. He was like, I might get addicted, do it 2 nights in a row. And he decided that he got peer pressured by Tom, understandable. But I have a prompt for you, Jason.
Yeah, good.
Okay.
Good.
Why is Tom so tired? Why is he so tired? Last episode, he needed to go to sleep at the party. This episode, he needs his coffee or he's going to fall asleep. He's so tired. Jason, why is Tom so tired?
Low T? Low testosterone?
He's not taking his ATN testosterone pills.
I think he's got to start taking them. There are many products on the market. Nugenics, for one, I think is one that comes highly recommended, certainly by older athletes of an American extraction. Doug Flutie, for example, has handled his low T problem through Nugenics. Nugenics not a sponsor of the Market Moves program, but I'm just saying I think Tom should perhaps look into it, or like a human growth hormone or some other kind of low testosterone amplifier that he should look at it. I think you're right. I think you're right to flag it because, maybe the T is low. That said, he did father a child recently. He'll get to that. He'll find that out.
He'll find that out soon. But you know what? For now, he's got good old Toot. He's got the cocaine. He's going to keep going. That's going to keep him going for now, but it will probably make him tired tomorrow. Spoiler warning, Tom. You're going to be tired again.
Is that the rule? You can't do it 2 days in a row? So can you skip a day and not get addicted if you do every other day?
I mean, I do believe that when you go to school in certain states, they probably tell you that if you do drugs once or twice in a row, you will become addicted.
That's
so
right.
Maybe if the books say so, it could be true. I don't think Greg needs to worry. That motherfucker is tall. I feel like his metabolism is very fast. I think he's going to be okay. I was very impressed, actually.
That's a
by
good
his
point.
skillful attempt not to do the coke and
He
pretend
tried.
to do it. That was one of my all-time favorite Greg moments. It was very good. But now they're both on coke, and that's obviously going to be great for democracy because everyone knows best decisions are made while you're on cocaine.
Connor calls and he harangues Tom about the pro-con stories that are out there on social media, but they're not making it to ATN.
There is no con coverage. I haven't even seen Con's face.
Stuff for the con heads?
The con heads, they're coming.
He says, come on, give me some sugar, man. Maybe everyone voted for me. You don't know. And to which Willa says Schrodinger's cat.
Yeah.
Meaning
until you count the votes, Tom,
you don't know.
Anyone could be president. Connor could be president. You don't know.
You don't know. Nobody knows. Also, we discover in this episode that Connor, and I think this is a bid to be presidential, is a guy who says shan't and alas.
He is. Willa, understandably, once again, the people's champion Willa coming through here. She says, fuck Kentucky. When they discovered that Connor did not win Kentucky, which was one of the few places they expected him to win. And he says, no, Willa. Not fuck Kentucky. I won't be that person. I shan't become that man. He says, alas, Kentucky, Willa. Alas, Kentucky. That doesn't even make sense, but I love it because I use alas all the time.
I love it.
Use alas. It'll make you rich.
As polls close, one of ATN's Steve Kornacki knockoffs has a touchscreen malfunction, and Tom, absolutely now amped to the gills on the marching powder, reacts like he is coked to the gills on the marching powder. Mm-hmm. Ken calls while this is going on. He's like, what the hell is going on with the touchscreen? Get that touchscreen up. I'm going to smash your head in like a soft-boiled egg. Meanwhile, Rosie mentioned earlier how there's this story about a voting center that's been set on fire in Wisconsin, a key battleground state. And listen, if you want to go by the facts, if you want to be one of those people who just goes by the facts.
Just the facts, doesn't question
just the facts, which is like, okay, basic, but if you want to be that person, then sure, Menkenites did set this voting precinct on fire. It also happens to be a heavily Democratic
that's
voting
just
area.
a coincidence.
Right. Ken and Shiv want to know why it's not being covered. Why aren't we covering this? Tom says we can't cover it because you think our audience wants to hear about how their side is bad? No, they want to hear about how their side is good, and so we can't cover this. And Roman says, well, why not just say it was anybody? Why not just say it was Antifa? Why not just say, it was all communists that burned it down? Why don't we just do that? Why can't we just do that? And that's, if you want to just go by facts and what a boring life you're going to lead. I live in a world of pure imagination. Where
pure imagination like Willy Wonka.
Yeah, just like him. Where everything changes to fit my whims whenever I want. And I think it's a much better way to be.
Definitely more fun. Want to eat some grass that's actually little mint flakes while you're burning down a voting mail-in ballot space? Do it. You can live that world. Pure imagination.
Now, there's, kind of like a small wrinkle with the voting center. It turns out that some ballots were lost there.
Yes. Maybe 100,000, some small amount.
Just some small amount of heavily Democratic ballots. And this news sets Mencken HQ and Jimenez HQ racing to kind of shape the post-election fire narrative. There's that word again, narrative. Shiv meets with Tom. She wants to talk fire narrative. Tom is making smarmy faces at her, and he's threatening to blow up her relationship with Mattson, and then he accuses Shiv of killing her dad, which is kind of unhinged, but okay. And Shiv responds by telling Tom that she's pregnant by him, and to which Tom responds, is this a negotiating tactic? Prompt number 4, Rosie. Does Tom believe Shiv?
I do not believe that Tom, in that moment, on the marching powder regime that he has decided to take part in this episode, I do not believe that in the moment he believes her. I actually believe that him saying, is this a negotiating tactic, is the most honest response. Those two are so far gone at this point. I mean, he just accused her of killing her own dad, which is cruel and also just patently untrue, no matter how stressed out Logan was. Like, they are way past toxic. They've gone to, you know, sub-level atomic burn situation here where they're just consistently doing the most horrific shit. I truly believe that he does think that, though, as Shiv walks out of the room, I do believe it begins to settle.
Yeah, there is kind of like, oh, did that really happen? Now, I read it a couple of ways. On the one hand, I think that he doesn't believe her. On the other hand, I think he was also like, well, she might be pregnant, but it might not be by me.
Yes.
She's out here fucking
And that's
anybody.
why he said something mean. I did think that could also be it, the kind of Nate of it all, the open relationship of it all. Like, that is his ultimate cruel comeback, because in his mind, he thinks it's very unlikely that it's his.
With the ballots burned and the absentee ballots not yet counted, Mencken basically calls ATN. Mencken HQ is linked in with Roman. Roman is Mencken's guy, Mencken's ambassador to ATN. And Mencken just wants, hey, just like say I won. Just stop the count and say that we won Milwaukee. Shiv realizes, because Roman basically says, and Ken confirms, that ATN's coverage tonight on the Milwaukee incident, the fire and the fallout from the fire and which way that state goes, will 100,000 million billion % be shaped by the perception that a Mencken administration will kill the Gojo deal. Period. That's it. They will go Mencken because Mencken will kill the deal, and that's it.
And they will not make that promise. So this is a very interesting and bleak episode.
It is bleak.
Very fucking bleak. But the thing I find most interesting is Shiv is in conflict with herself, because now she's like, oh, I can't let a fascist become president because I'm a liberal and I believe in all these liberal things. But she has done everything along the way to be horribly complicit in this. And even, I have to say, Kendall, I feel like he spends a lot of this episode, he's not being big boss material. He is in a moral quandary.
He is in a moral quandary. Well, listen, like, it's all well and good. I think we've all, invited...
Accidentally helped a fascist become president.
Well, it's one thing to invite neo-Nazis and fascists and white nationalists to your party, to just come over and have tea and crumpets. I think we've all done that. But it's another thing to have them stay, and I think
then own your house.
And I think Shiv and Ken are dealing with the fact that, hey, I just invited these guys over for like a little NFL on Sunday, and now all of a sudden they're moving in. Is that what I want? Maybe it is. I don't know. The ATN head Kornacki, Darwin, briefs the Roys and Shiv and basically says, like, okay, you can actually look at this precinct which burned, and you can look at the voter rolls and see all the people who voted
and who are registered and who they voted for before, and
they're either Democrats or registered as Republicans, and you could basically say, here's how they would have voted. Meanwhile, Ravenhead is on the air. You remember Ravenhead, of course, the ATN on-air talent guy who, again, has read Mein Kampf a couple times because of the wonderful Easter eggs in there, and it named his dog Blondie after some German leader's dog, I forget who. He's basically on the air saying, like, oh, so I guess we're, the fire only burned the Democratic votes now.
The fire is picky, and they're going to tell you who voted, and they're not actually going to count the votes. They're just going to tell you, oh, these people voted, and they are going to take your freedom as American voters. And of course, it's a masterclass in reflection and shaping the narrative. That's
right. The pressure is building. Shiv corners Greg and flat out threatens to murder him. This was interesting because it was all stick, and I'm not even sure like what's the pitch. It's just like, do this or what? And Greg asks, like, okay, what's in it for me? And she's like, I won't pull your intestines out of your butt.
That is what she says. I mean, I think the pitch is, don't tell the boys that I am in bed with Mattson, which of course he knows because Mattson's just a fucking blabbermouth. Yeah. But like, she did not approach this the right way, because Greg is, first of all, broke. Second of all, an idiot. Third of all, he literally asks her for a bribe. She could have just given him like $100,000, which to people like us and people like the Roys is nothing. That's like pocket money to Shiv,
Yes.
to us, to Market Moves listeners who have invested wisely. She could have just thrown him, you know, a little bit cash, a little bit sweetener. And actually, Greg probably would have stayed quiet just for a little bit longer.
Roman leans on Tom and Darwin, the head Kornacki, to call Milwaukee for Mencken. Let's do it. Just do it. Let's just do
Just
it.
say
do
that
it. Just
this
say it.
turns Wisconsin in his favor.
Right.
He's going to get the 10 votes. It's going to be great.
Yeah, and Darwin is like, well, we can't really call it because like there's this whole process and it's got to go to the courts and all that. But what we can, if we kind of couch it as like a pending call, it's
He's
not
like,
a call,
Tom, can
but
you
it's
make
like
a Chiron? Can you make it graphic?
it's like a pre-call. This is punctuated by Darwin getting
Whew!
bodega wasabi in his eyes, and then Greg pouring lemon LaCroix into it. Luckily, Darwin is able to go on the air, and ATN makes a call. Mencken wins Wisconsin. Ken is kind of unhappy. Connor goes on the air and concedes, basically throwing it to Mencken and saying, hey, it's... we lost, but that Jared Mencken, he's pretty great, isn't he? And in return for this, he will get ambassador to Slovenia. Shouts to Luka Doncic. And Willa is like, well, it's very, very sad that the country is going to be overrun by Nazis, but on the other hand, shopping in Switzerland.
In Vienna, Venice for lunch.
Yeah.
Also, Connor does a little bit of goes off script. Does a little bit of a jazz thing, does some scatting, threatens the country by telling them the con heads are coming.
Yes.
Says, so what? I'm a billionaire. You'll have to find someone else's teat to suckle at. It's a terrible performance, and I loved every second of it. Thank you, Connor. Never see you again when you go to Slovenia. You're never coming back. The Warriors are keeping you there forever.
So when it becomes clear that Arizona on the up and up is going to go red, now ATN is boxed in. They already called Wisconsin pending, but they called it.
They didn't ever say pending either. Like
they just basically called it.
They called it.
And so with AZ basically going Mencken, that means they have to call Mencken as the winner of the presidential election. Roman is slavering at the mouth.
He's so happy.
Ken is like, oh, my daughter, hold on a second. I have to call a timeout. So in private, Ken voices his concerns to Roman and for, democracy and diversity and the safety of his children and all that kind of stuff. And Roman's like, fuck it. Who cares? Who cares? He says that, he says, quote, dad's dead and the country is just a big pussy waiting to get fucked. Which brings us to prop number 5. Has Roman always been this bad? Or because Roman's always been bad. Roman's terrible.
He's fallen off the nihilistic cliff. And there is no coming back. Multiple times throughout this episode, he says, nothing matters. Nothing's real. It's all bullshit. Like, all we did was program a good night of TV. It's almost like he is so depressed and so unhinged and unconnected from reality after his dad's death that this has become like a game to him. And I think that as much as we know Kendall really wants to run the company by himself because he's a little backstabbing bitch, I think Roman has those designs too, but whereas Kendall wants it because Kendall sees himself having some grand legacy like his dad, I think to Roman it's just about winning a game. It's nightmarishly scary to watch Roman this episode. He doesn't like Mencken. Go back a few episodes, he was calling him a Nazi. He is lavishing in this chaotic kind of fucking moral void. It's incredibly scary to watch.
It was frightening. I don't know if Roman has always been this bad, but I do think Roman is the type of person who lowers himself to the level of the people around him.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels like, listen, the hotline of Jared Mencken is intoxicating, that kind of like pathway to power. Yeah, you like have the most powerful potentially person in the world on speed dial if you just kind of like push a couple of levers here and there. And I think he's really fired up about that. And I think that he also thinks that nothing bad really will happen.
Yeah.
Sure, a voting place got burned by Nazis, okay? But stuff burns all the time. That's why we have fire departments. Why do fire departments exist? Because stuff catches fire.
Mm-hmm. He's so in his own bubble as well. Politics has never affected any of them. At the party, the most prescient, brilliant, real things about that episode is that the party has Republicans, Democrats, all different donors. Because for a lot of people, as we know is true in real life, those people are friends. Those rich people are friends. They stay close. That's the circles we move in here at Market Moves. You know, it doesn't matter your political alignment as long as you bow to the god of money. And Roman, I think, has been so couched in that he cannot see that Mencken is not that. Mencken does not come from that world. Mencken will likely not play by those rules. And also, I think there is an element of you talked about Roman. Has he always been this bad? Roman's always been like a troll, and he's enjoyed trolling people, whether he's trolling Jerry. This is that full-blown edgelord bullshit coming to the forefront of like, oh, I can edgelord us into having a nightmare president, but he'll call me and he'll ask me what I think.
All I know is why didn't stuff bursts into flame every day, and I don't see anybody caring about it when that happens. Something's on fire right now. How come nobody's talking about it?
Fire happens every 1 second and no one's talking about it.
Now all of a sudden people care about fire?
Oh, hypocritical.
Ken goes to Shiv, and he says flat out, listen, Mencken is offering to kill the deal. Just like unambiguously kill it. And he admits that, hey, I want to run the company myself, and I'm a little threatened by Roman's relationship with Mencken. And so I have some hesitations here. And Shiv goes, yeah, and that hesitation is also because you're a good person. Yeah, you killed a kid. Yeah, you've done other bad things.
Mm-hmm.
The taking of a life, the worst, but other stuff, not as bad as that.
Many other bad things.
But you're good. You're a good person. And if you say, hey, we fucked up the Wisconsin call, you can do that, and you can make us do that, and we can do that. Now, she does not admit that.
Nope.
Part of the reason that, yes, of course, she loves democracy. Who doesn't? Come on.
Everyone loves democracy.
Everybody loves democracy. We all love it.
It's great.
It's great. It's great. It's great. Pluralism. Woo. She cares about it. But, she is also working with Matsson to make sure the deal happens. So there is also that angle, which she does not reveal at this moment. Shiv gets on the phone to see if Jimenez can maybe promise, or at least promise to think about killing the deal. And does she get through? Does she not get? She doesn't get through. She bluffs that they're interested.
I think she called the number purposefully to not get through. Like,
You think so?
Because even if she
I think
asked
Nate would have
them-
answered. You're probably right. Nate would have
I
answered.
think even if she doesn't want to ask Nate because she actually knows that in that situation she might be the one who could get Nate to say yes, but she needs the deal to go through. So she bluffs, and I have to say, I've been
It's a bad
Shiv
bluff
this season, but this is terrible bluff.
Let's talk about that. So Shiv bluffs, and it's a very bad bluff. Like, it's obviously there's no details.
She doesn't sell it.
She doesn't sell it at all. Roman doesn't buy it.
Doesn't even send Nate like a security text to be like, just fucking trust me. If Ken calls you, just go along with whatever.
Yes.
Like,
so Ken gets on the horn with Nate, and he immediately figures out that Shiv bluffed. And so his spider sense now is tingling. He goes to Greg and he's like, what's going on with Shiv? Do you know anything? And this is where he finds out that she's been working with Matsson. He comes in.
Greg folded like a piece of fucking paper.
I mean,
I just need to say, like, Greg is standing just looking Shiv in the face through a plate glass window, selling her the fuck out. But you know what? Shiv should have known. As soon as Greg knew, she should have gone to them and been like, I've been playing Matsson so I could get all the insider details. She did not play this well at all. This is a sell Shiv moment. I feel like it's gone very badly for this episode.
Sell Shiv. Not an operator, not a person you can deal with. Unfortunately, I was thinking of her dad's quote to the children, all of the children, you're not serious people.
Yeah,
she's not serious.
She's
She is not a serious person at all.
She's an unserious person at this point.
This was really bad, Shiv. Like, you fucking chuffed it. That was awful. So Ken comes in. He says, "You're working with Mattson." She denies it, but she's fucking absolutely caught. And now Ken is on the Mencken train. Shiv is, pulls out her, final like ace in the hole, which is like, I guess I'll go public, and be like, "Hey, you're all terrible people, and you did this quid pro quo over the Gojo deal, and that's why you made the call." And Ken and Roman are like, "We don't believe you. We don't believe you do that. So bye." Mencken gives a victory speech that is something out of an early Guillermo del Toro movie. Like, he looks like he's about to rip off his face and turn into a demon. Like,
This is
right
old
there.
school fascism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mencken calls Roman. Ken maybe has a sliver of anxiety about the closeness of their relationship. This phone call, like, he's calling my brother. Tom, meanwhile, is being personally attacked for the ATN call. Like, he is the focal point of that call. Shiv gets on the horn to Lucas. She's trying to muster some kind of response to this. Lucas is like, "Holy shit, you guys elected a fascist. Wow." And Shiv is like, "Okay, get your head together. We need to figure out a way to fuck over our brothers and get Mencken out of here." Meanwhile, Ken tries to go see his family and his daughter, whose security is now very much a threat under in a nation ruled by Jared Mencken. But Rava's like, "We're sleeping."
Whoa!
That is the election night in the world of Succession, and it is a doozy, folks.
It was a doozy. Definite doozy. I will say, now look, we said sell Shiv, and I do still believe that, simply just because I think that the only way this ends at this point is with all of Roy's probably going down. But, they say hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. What does Shiv know that you, Jason, the knowledgeable stocks and bonds economic type person that you are, you had mentioned that you felt like Ken could be taken down by somebody rat fucking him with the, whole murder thing. The little thing about the murder.
The little thing about the murder.
I feel like that has to be the front of Shiv's mind when it comes to rat fucking the brothers.
Is it enough, and does it do enough?
But do you combine it, though, with them purposefully using the news to get a deal killed? Is those two things together, does that make enough of a problem to get rid of them, even though ATN would surely survive?
I think you do it like a 1-2 punch. I think you come out with so much heat on this election. I think you come out right away and you say, my brothers did a handshake deal with Jared Mencken that they would call Wisconsin for him, despite the absence of hundreds of thousands of votes, thousands of votes that surely would have tilted Democratic, in return for a promise from Jared Mencken to lop the head off the Gojo deal as soon as he is in the Oval Office. And I think you lead with that. And I think you let that kind of boil and stew for like a week, 2 weeks. Let that go, kind of wash around the news cycle like 2-3 times. And once that is starting to like fade and shrink a little bit, then you hit him with, "Oh, by the way, my brother killed a guy."
Yeah.
And he told me about it. It was at my wedding. And in Italy, after he tried to commit suicide, or before, or sometime around then, he admitted to me and my brother and that he did kill a waiter at my wedding.
Yeah, I think that would be a huge hit, obviously, for Kendall. I do believe that Kendall and Rome could be seen on their way out and have the board do the Gojo deal.
I think you go for
end
free
up with Greg.
I think that you go.
I
I think you go for a triple too. After you let the "P.S. my brother killed a guy" wash around for a little while, then I think you maybe after a week or 2 weeks you go, "P.S. My other brother Roman was sending our lead counsel of Waystar Royco, Jerry, dick pics for an extended period of time, and also sent our dad a dick pic at a meeting."
And you know what? I think that Shiv could possibly get Jerry on side for that if it meant a bigger payout for Jerry. I think Jerry is sick of it. Okay, let me ask you this. What is Tom's fate? Because this, to me, I feel like Tom's road is at an end. This feels like a Shakespearean tragic end to his ladder climbing. You know, he basically waited for the kids to tell him what to do, but he is the one, his face is being put all over the liberal news media, even the right-wing media. People are saying he called Wisconsin too early and it is his fault. And not only that, but he is in the pocket of Jared Mencken. They say this man knows Jared Mencken. He's an associate of Jared Mencken. Did Tom's quest for ratings, did that set him on the path to ATN execution? Is he out?
I think Tom... Well, it depends. I think Tom is out. I think his career is going to be essentially over. He is the face of this.
Yeah.
Ken and Rome are going to moonwalk away from this. They're not going to take the blame for it. It's going to be all about Tom, and that narrative is already taking shape. And I think as a result of this, Tom is going to find himself as like the CEO or the head of programming at like whatever the Succession universe version of The Blaze is, or some right-wing YouTube channel for kind of like for like a low six-figure salary that is going to make him very, very miserable and unhappy because he's working with people like who don't drink wine.
Okay, and I do feel like obviously this episode in Succession, as we said, feels very rooted in reality. But the last question I have for you is like, how far? So we know Kendall drops it at the end of the episode when he's on the phone to Rava. Next week is the funeral. So we know that's no longer going to be the finale. How far do you think that we see the nightmarish Nazi ramifications of Mencken go in that final episode? Do you think it's going to like jump a shark potentially? Or do you think it's going to be more like ominous kind of ripple effect? Where do you see that going?
I think we don't get too much more of it, honestly. I think when we leave this story, the election is still going to be being litigated in the courts, but that ultimately it will be Jimenez, but that we don't go too much deeper on it. It'll just be about these people. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think one of the smartest things about Succession is they spent 4 seasons basically saying, look at how stupid these people are. Look at all the terrible mistakes they made and look at how rich they are. And don't worry, though, because they're just rich and they just really only affect their own world. And I think it's an incredibly smart move that at the end they were like, oh, but now they are directly impacting you and your lives and who is president. And however you feel about that, positive or negative, that is what is happening. I mean, we see that the 3 siblings essentially choose the outcome of American democracy. And I just think that in itself is the bleakest statement that the show has to make. So I agree with you. I think that we get the funeral. I think the finale's probably going to deal with whether or not the Gojo sale goes through. And I think we leave the world in a kind of bleak state of, oh, look what the Roys did.
Up next, Yellowjackets.
We're stepping out of the airlock and into the wild wilderness of Yellowjackets Season 2, Episode 7. If you thought Succession was bleak, oh baby, are you ready? It's an intense time in the forest once again. In Burial, directed by Anya Adams and written by Rich Monahan and Liz Fang. It's a depressing time in the snowy wilds, which we are instantly alerted to thanks to the famous Batman soundtrack hit, Something in the Way, by Nirvana. The girls are still mourning Shauna's baby, and the fact that they are absolutely snowed in, like snow to the window snowed in, is not helping their spirits. But Lottie notices, was it magic? We don't know. It's episode 7 in season 2. We don't know what's going on. Lottie notices the snow has stopped, and suddenly the girls are inspired to dream of spring and survival. So they begin to dig themselves out. And in a move that will surely relieve many viewers, Shauna secretly buries her baby under some rocks, making a little baby tomb.
Yikes.
Substantially lessening the chance that they will eat the baby, I feel. She's keeping it away from them. The baby eating odds are going down.
Can you come? Let me ask you this. There's been a lot of conjecture that they might eat the baby. Can you? It feels like one of those. Can they come back from this? Like, do you burn these characters if they eat the baby?
I think that is why they did the dream sequence eating the baby.
Yeah.
I think because you got that horrific, visceral shock, and then the reveal that it wasn't real. Because I don't think you can come back. Now, they did if they did do it, they wouldn't have killed the baby because the baby
Right.
did die naturally, it seems. But I do agree. I think that Shauna's put in her little furry baby package and she's putting it under some stones. It's a very moving moment. She does it where no one else can see. I think we can, for now, probably say that I think baby eating is off the table. Because I think you're right. These are characters people have grown to love. We see them in the adult timeline and you are meant to care about them and care about their journey. And I think that could be quite hard to come back from. Shauna is not the only one who is horribly impacted by the death of the baby. It's clear that it's affecting all the girls, but none more so than Ty and Van. Ty kind of cries to Van and says, hey, I really thought the baby was going to survive. I thought this was something positive for us. And Van brings up a very good point, which also the showrunners have talked about quite extensively. What if the baby had survived?
Right.
What would you do with a baby? They're all starving. They don't have any food. Shauna couldn't breastfeed because she's starving, and it's just another mouth to feed. It seems quite bleak from Van, who is a bit of a spiritual Lottie follower. But we learn here, and I feel like this is probably going to be really big going into the next couple of episodes. Van reveals that she no longer sees her constant gay immortality, you know, getting eaten by a wolf, surviving a plane crash where she should have died, and also surviving her not dead body being burnt after she was eaten by a wolf. She used to feel like that meant something, that she was here for a reason. And Ty's like, you are here for a reason. I promise you, like, you can do it. But Van is on the nihilistic train to nowhere, questioning her place in the world and the wilderness and wondering why the fuck she's still alive. And honestly, I feel like it's a very relatable position.
It did. It really felt like Van has done a lot of living and learning. She's probably done the most evolving of any of the characters that we've seen.
Yeah.
And that's why it's both fascinating and I think a good development for Ty, that we kind of see them rediscovering the chemistry a little bit over the course of this episode.
Absolutely. And they are rediscovering it at Camp Greenpine, Lottie's wellness retreat. And
they're an intentional community.
Intentional community. Apologies. Don't sue me. An intentional community. And guess what? That community has new members because every adult survivor from the core group is there. Lottie is there. Of course, she's running it. Natalie's there. Of course, she's basically joined the cult. I think she's playing a long game, but it's unclear. Misty turned up to save Natalie. She's been there 24 hours and she is all in. She seems to love the cult. Van, Ty, and Shauna all recently arrived. So you have a little bit of a unsanctioned Yellowjackets reunion. And Lottie's not going to waste this opportunity. Lottie's like, you're here. Let's pick some activities. It's like summer camp, but people probably don't have to give up all their worldly belongings to join a summer camp. Shauna picks self-care. She thinks it means spas and, you know, painting your toenails, but it actually means that she's going to have to look after a very cute baby goat named Bruce.
She gets into it, man.
She gets very into it, and I have to say, this is such good writing, but Shauna is just absolutely fucking sure that she's going to have to kill the goat.
Yeah, she's like...
And everybody is like...
100% no.
Nobody says it. Like, nobody ever says it, but she's convinced that she's going to have to look after this goat, grow close to it, and then have it die. And I think we can understand where that fear is coming from. Ty selects the creepily named Renewal, which leads her to painting a cabin with a makeup brush. It's very Mr. Miyagi, very Karate Kid. Yeah. Van chooses foraging, but Van's also like, fuck you, I'm just going to forage some whiskey out of my car. Like, I'm not doing this shit.
I'm not doing this. I don't have a lot of time left. We'll get to that later.
Exactly.
I'm going to do what I want to do.
She's like, I got to make the most of what I got. Yeah. Misty gets left with guidance, sending her to an isolation tank, which she is less than happy to experience, but where she ultimately treats viewers to a season best sequence that has to be seen to be believed. But we will get to that in a little while. In the wilderness, Coach Ben.
Oh, man.
He's still struggling. I love this is such a cool way to kind of, I think we're going to be ending this part of his disassociation storyline here, but he hallucinates getting a call from his ex-boyfriend or his boyfriend who is still, you know, not in the wilderness. But this time we see his boyfriend in the cabin. And Ben is just fully invested in this fantasy and this delusion. He talks to him. He wants to know. And the boyfriend's like, no, it's over. You got to leave. We can't do this anymore. And Ben kind of screams after him into the forest, and all the girls look at him like, who the fuck is Paul? Who are you talking to? And Ben's kind of like, oh, don't worry, I'm all good, man. I'm doing good. I'm doing okay. And he kind of has a creepy smile on his face, which doesn't bode well.
No.
Misty is digging out the cabin, and she overhears Akila, Mari, and Jen celebrating her aptitude at Shauna's birth. Yay!
Hey.
Love to hear a compliment. But
good news, bad news.
quickly, she also hears Mari reveal that she thinks Misty is more psychotic than ever. And I have to say, Mari is not wrong. Mari suggests that Misty actually did something to Crystal. Perhaps killed her.
Well, you know what we say on this program. We were right.
Mari was right.
Mari was right.
But Misty, being the, delightful and always innovative sociopath that she is, uses this intel to manipulate the crew by suggesting that they should all go and look
We gotta look
for her dead friend Crystal, which kind of
Yeah.
wins Akila over to the side. And Mari, I don't think she's believing it. So this episode, if you have ever wondered about the rules of Yellowjackets cannibalism, which of course is a large part of the mystery of the show, we start to get hints here about how that part of the wilderness culture is going to be shaped. Because Lottie does a little speech about the wilderness when Misty suggests going to find Crystal, and it comes out that Lottie basically believes that Shauna's baby was a sacrifice that allowed Shauna to live. If you remember, the girls said, Mari specifically, tactless as ever, when Shauna was in labor, said, "Wilderness, I hope Shauna doesn't die." And Lottie seems to have put 2 and 2 together and made a supernatural 5 and decided that the reason the baby died was the wilderness taking that so Shauna could live. And I think that hints quite likely that the killings that we see, that opening sequence that kind of got the internet talking in that first ever episode of the show, we might be in a situation where those killings are sacrifices to appease the wilderness or to get something that they want.
I like that.
I think we get something really interesting here, which is some of the JV squad, like Jen and like a couple of other girls who are like very not in the center of the story. They're like, oh, well, if Crystal, if she's missing, if she's dead, like, what if we just ate her?
Yeah.
And they are incredibly chill about it. They're like, could be a nice snack. Like,
once you eat one person, and that was a person that you liked, who was one of the most popular, popular.
But she was like the queen bee.
It was it was like a main mover and shaker in this group.
Mm-hmm.
Crystal is just a weirdo. Nobody even knew Crystal. Did anybody know Crystal?
Exactly.
Not really.
Like,
We can
that's
eat
what I'm
her.
saying. And they're like, not saying I hope she's dead, but like,
No.
If she was,
I'm just saying
dead,
if she was dead,
it would be like a waste.
I hope
right.
If she was dead, I hope that the rich and nutritious areas of her body are still worth eating.
Yeah, I hope that we could have another delicious little group barbecue, little fun delusion for full tummies. But Misty is not going to let anyone eat her friend. She's not having it. She goes out to search for Crystal, who she's pretending is still alive, with Mari and Akila, and does a little Meryl Streep style performance. She cries, "Oh, I can't do this. It's so hard." She's channeling her best Steel Magnolias, and she sneaks off to find Crystal before her teammates. Now, she says, "Kristen, I'm not going to let them eat you," but I think she really just doesn't want them to find the dead body. Because then they will probably know she did kill her. Interestingly, she doesn't find Crystal's body at the bottom of the cliff where Crystal fell to her untimely death. You mentioned, does anyone really know Crystal? Let's talk about this.
Yes.
Was Crystal real? Did Crystal exist?
I think Crystal existed, but I also think her quote-unquote death, it might be a Javi situation. It might be,
There's something odd going on there.
There's a lot of, in this episode and previous episodes, but definitely overtly in this episode, and we will get to the big one, the big we were right. There is a lot of people seeing things,
Mm-hmm.
having full conversations that did not happen.
Yeah, and I remember from the very first time Crystal showed up in this season, and she was singing, and she was out there in the backyard with Misty. It seemed like a lot of their interactions were happening with no one else around.
Yeah.
Now, people were saying, oh, we'll look for Crystal. We'll look for your friend, you know. So the assumption is there was a person called Crystal who was in Yellowjackets, and people seem to be aware of her existence. But the Crystal that we know, who was Misty's best friend, who Misty killed, it's becoming more and more unclear whether that version of Crystal ever really existed. And the fact that Crystal's body isn't there, maybe Harvey's mysterious friend took it. Maybe somebody already found it to eat it. Maybe a moose ate it. I don't know. But the fact it's not there is very suspicious. And I think will likely come into play in these next 2 episodes. Misty
Crystal never existed is interesting, though.
It is, right?
Yeah, it's interesting.
I think it's interesting because there is a distinct lack of interest in finding Crystal.
Mm-hmm.
And there is, when you go back and watch the episodes, Crystal rarely ever interacts with anyone, if ever, when Misty isn't there. So I'm just very interested in what that relationship really looks like and how Crystal plays into kind of Misty's ongoing journey and obviously like deep troubles and struggles with her mental health.
Mm-hmm.
So she does not find Crystal's dead body, but she does find Coach Ben. And he's very creepy and calm, and he shaved off his beard. And he's about to throw himself off a cliff.
Yes.
He's just like, I'm done.
Now, let me ask you this. Is similar to the Crystal lines. Is this, did he really shave off his beard? Or is this, he's notably having a hallucination, a conversation with his partner. And it seemed, at least I read it as, the shaving was like a reaction to either that conversation or some version of him has now intersected with this forest reality.
Yeah. There's definitely some kind of strange acceptance that Ben has come to here that seems to be connected to his past disassociation delusions and the forest. And it's also unclear whether he sees this as committing suicide. Like, right. He seems very calm about it. He seems like he knows what he has to do. And it is a very interesting interaction because for once, Misty does not kill someone. In fact, he actually asks her to kill him. He says, Misty, couldn't you just push me off the edge?
Like you've done so many times that you're a person who kills people.
Couldn't you
can't
just
you
do
just
that for
also
me?
Yeah, can't
do
you
me
also
a little favor?
Please.
And Misty, actually, I have to say, and once again, we are Misty defenders here. She uses her evil powers for good. She tells him, I'm going to tell everyone that you were like creepy, that you were impregnated Shauna. She's like, don't kill yourself because then I will control the narrative.
Right, I will control the narrative.
And she's like, and I'm going to tell everyone you're gay. And that one, he's actually like, I'd like you to do that.
Please do it.
He knows in his heart that was the one fuck up that he had made in his past that he wished he could change, was that he didn't get to live out with his partner. But you know what? In the end, a non-Meryl Streep performance, I do believe Misty was quite upset. Misty breaks down into tears, and Coach Ben is like, actually, I'm not going to kill myself. Shocking. I don't get it. I didn't think he was a Misty fan. But you know what? I think maybe we're seeing him come up out of the depths of despair he has been in and start to try and be a little bit more active in the cannibal cabin community, which I know has been hard for him.
Yes, it has.
It's been hard. But this was also, I will say, Misty's very lucky that this happened because she absolutely would have got blamed for that murder.
Oh,
even if she didn't do it. Here's
the thing. You can't be around... Listen, if you're around one dead body, it's it happened, she fell, it's an accident. If you're around two, now the hard questions start.
And the second one is somebody you already poisoned.
You already tried to kill.
Lest we not forget.
I think at that point, the benefit of the doubt evaporates quite quickly.
Yeah. At Camp Green Pine, Misty and Shauna have a little argument after Shauna tries to judge Misty about her penchant for killing. And Misty rightfully points out that Shauna is also a murderer. And not just that, but Shauna wouldn't have even gotten away with it if it wasn't for Misty. Shauna says Misty doesn't take killing seriously, but Misty's like, actually, I was the only one who took your murder seriously enough.
That's right. And thank you. Yeah, I didn't get a thank you.
Yeah, where's my thank you? You never even thanked me. You were never grateful for it. That's bad. It's classy Misty home truth.
Yeah.
But can Misty face some home truths of her own? Before we get to that, Shauna tells Lottie, I'm not going to kill the goat. And Lottie's like, bro, nobody said you have to kill it. Like,
no killing.
Just look after the goat. The goat is
it.
innocent. If you look after the goat, maybe you start to look after yourself better. And this leads to like a massive revelation for Shauna where she kind of cries, and Melanie Linsky's at a high level giving a great performance. Shauna basically just says, I've always kept Callie at arm's length because I thought she would die, or I'd find out she wasn't even real.
Yeah.
Which is obviously exactly what happened to Shauna in the forest. So it sounds like that trauma of the wilderness is really fucking her up. And I want to say, we always say it about Ty, but I'm saying it to you, Shauna. Get some help.
Please.
Not Lottie. Just go to a therapist.
Yes.
Like, that's very sad. And I wish that you and Callie can find a good non-in-prison way of bonding before this all ends. Everyone's having breakthroughs at Camp Green Pine. Misty heads into the isolation tank. And I really love this because Misty is like terrified to face herself. She is sure that she is going to have a nightmarish time in the isolation tank, that she's going to see all the terrible murders she's committed, or, you know, have to deal with all the awful things that she's done. But instead, she just enjoys a magnificent musical vision.
Yes.
Which features Walter dancing in a top hat, a human version of her pet parrot Caligula. She's standing in front of like a very Twin Peaks lodge red curtain.
Really was. It was like Big Lebowski dream sequence meets Twin Peaks meets Altered States.
Mm-hmm. And the only thing that even hints towards Misty's past is you get this really great illustration of the plane recorder that she smashed. You get a little syringe from all the people she's murdered driving through. But you know what? She's having a great time. She's laughing.
Absolutely having a great time.
Walter is doing a great little dance routine, and then you see Walter pull out a Garfield phone. Iconic. I still want one of those. I wanted one ever since I was a kid. And as the internet so wonderfully deciphered, he writes in Morse code as he is dialing, and you see it come up on the screen, I love you, backwards. Thank you to those internet citizen detectives who found that out for us. Hilariously, Misty's only takeaway from her isolation is that Walter loves her, she loves Walter, and they're going to be like happily ever after together. So she calls him and tries to make up. Walter does not answer, but she leaves a very unhinged voicemail, which I loved. She even does a fake, no, you hang up, no, you hang up. She admits to Adam's murder over the phone.
Fucking wild stuff.
Cool. She's like, you know that thing you said? It's true. But will Walter get her message? We don't know, because he didn't pick up. But you know what? It's not the only romance going down. Van and Ty, they find each other in the candlelit groves of Camp Pine. Why? Who put out all those candles in the woods? Seems dangerous.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's romantic. And they share an illicit kiss. Ty's like, it's going to be a long time till I can be in this. And Van's like, bro, I can't wait for you. Literally.
We don't have it.
We don't have
the time.
Don't have waiting for you time.
Sorry, don't. We don't have
I've got cancer, and it's not one of those good kinds of cancer where people are like, oh, it's so lucky you got this kind, or oh, we caught it just in time. No, remember how my mum died of cancer? Well, now I got it, and I got like months to live. And Ty is upset, and Ty wants to know why she didn't call, but let's be real, it's because Ty sucks. Love Ty, but Ty's a terrible friend, not a good person as an adult, just not doing
dependable.
Well. Let's not forget, Ty's wife is currently in hospital in a coma. Where is her son?
Who, by the way, Ty put her in that coma.
Ty put her in a coma.
That's right. She's in a coma of Ty's making. And now Ty is off somewhere rekindling the
teenage
romance, her high school romance from the ashes, while her partner, her legal partner, co-parent, lies in a coma that she put her in. Terrible stuff by Ty, but this is a heartwarming scene.
Heartwarming scene, but terrible scene. So, Lottie also has a breakthrough. And I want to say, this is a big we were right moment. Jason absolutely called this like word for word last week. And Lottie's breakthrough is a terrifying one.
It really is.
Because Lottie
creepy.
is sitting with her therapist, who we mentioned seemed a little bit sus. And as Jason pointed out, we learn this episode that she is not real.
Bum, bum, bum.
She gives her some very bad advice. We see her saying things to her like, is there anything of value in this life that doesn't come with risk, Lottie? She says, Lottie, what does self-repression ever give us? Like, maybe the reason you want to see these women is because the feral part of you is free. And Lottie starts to suspect that something is up. And then, dun, 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 the therapist transforms into the Antler Queen, who has been a rare sight this last 2 seasons.
Really has been.
And she says, does a hunt that has no violence feed anyone? Before disappearing. So, is this just a straight Lottie hallucination? Or is she being like manipulated by the wilderness and the Antler Queen into this kind of magical thinking about the girls and having them all there at Camp Green Pine?
Yeah, I think it's some version of the latter. Obviously, I think we're circling around it. But I think it's pretty clear that whatever it is coming from the outside. And it's, you know, there was a time, listeners will remember, not that long ago, where we were pretty sure Lottie was behind or in some form or fashion moving this kind of stuff forward. But it's very clear that she's a victim of this like everybody else.
Yeah.
I will also say they said something interesting, which is that they seem to suggest that nobody really remembers what happened.
Exactly. That's about to... I have a big highlight on that one. So in an extremely bad friend move, in my opinion, Van brings her bottle of booze to the sharing lod. And it seems
very bad.
It seems like they all try and encourage Natalie to drink, though I will say I think Natalie says no. So good for you, Natalie. But I was feeling mad about that. I didn't feel like that was good
shocking.
Vibes.
Yeah, she just
and
got done
Shauna
telling
was like
everybody
drinking and started showing at her. Like it was bad.
She's
and
like,
then,
I have very serious addiction issues. Oh, why don't you have a drink? What?
Yeah, and Shauna's like, oh, aren't you a fuck up? Like, you can't be telling us this? And I'm like, bro, you are bad friends. Like, I'm not surprised Natalie ended up so fucked up. But Lottie, I will say, in a rare responsible moment, arrives and she's like, you got to leave. Like, none of this is real. Like, I'm hallucinating. But they're just like, nah, we're wasted. We want to get wasted. We want to have fun and drink and dance and just enjoy our life. And in an unbelievable moment, which I actually had to watch, I had to rewind it to really check that they did this. But Misty almost kills the vibe by referencing the crash as, you know that first summer?
Yeah, that was so funny. Like a summer camp thing.
Right? And everyone's like, what the fuck? Like, no. And also, like, first summer, I'm like, did that happen to you again? Like, what happened? But it does lead to that very big revelation that you were mentioning about when Nat asks everyone, like, how much do you actually remember about being there? And it seems like they don't really remember very much about being in the woods.
Now, this is mind-blowing to me because I always perceived the flashbacks as remembrances.
Yes! It feels like and the way that the narrative has been structured and edited, we often learn things that feel very relevant to where the characters are in the modern day. So the fact that they sort of say, oh, for me, it's blurry, or like I repressed it. And, you know, Ty says it feels like things have just been completely pulled out of her brain. That's very supernatural leaning to me. Yes.
Same here, which leads me, I guess these are just, I mean, again, I always thought that the flashbacks were their memories, but clearly they're not. And so I think we can take them, on the one hand, I think that the upside is we can take those a lot more seriously now.
A little bit more objective
Right.
rather than unreliable narrators. But interestingly, also, especially heading into the end of this season and what will be season 3 whenever the writer's strike is over, are we being who is showing them to us? And what is the purpose? That's what becomes very interesting, because if it's not those memories and it's not, how do these women try and navigate their lives with these memories of all the terrible things they did as girls? And Shauna does have the journals, and Shauna definitely knows a little bit more because she talks a lot about shame and the terrible things they did. But Natalie and Ty and Lottie, they all basically say that they don't really remember anything.
I've been wondering if the Antler Queen is not any one of them, is a different entity altogether. Now, it might be a alter ego of Lottie's. I think that is that's in play. That could be the case.
Even an alter ego of Ty's. You know,
Right.
we know Nighttime Ty is like a separate personality.
That is in the cards. But I also wonder if it's not a completely separate entity altogether.
Yeah.
And I am also wondering if, as with Ty, they are all kind of in various ways wrestling with their evil alter egos. Obviously Ty is the one that's, most obviously in that kind of conflict, but I do wonder if the rest of them aren't having that kind of struggle, but just not perceiving it as a completely binary different person that's inhabiting their body.
No, I definitely could see that. I think there's something really interesting there, especially because of that theory we were talking about last week about like the girls needing to come back together again to kind of like get rid of whatever the dark thing that they brought back. That could definitely just be like a different part of their personality that they had to repress. And also I think that the Antler Queen being a different person is actually really interesting, because in the episode 5, where at the end we see Natalie's vision where they're in the plane and she sees the Antler Queen lift up the veil, from pausing that, people discovered that she saw herself as the Antler Queen. I don't think Natalie's the Antler Queen, but I do think the Antler Queen represents a role that maybe they played at different points. Maybe they all took that on. Maybe that was something they did. Or, as you said, could we know that Harvey had a friend who told him not to return to the camp? That could be the Antler Queen. She could be the one who runs those woods. You could be in a much more simple witch style series. But I will say, the end of this episode, I think, leans into one of our big, really out there tinfoil hat theories, which is the like parallel timeline theory, where things are happening at the same time. So the girls are talking, and it seems like they're going to have a breakthrough, kind of this realization they don't really know stuff. But on Lottie's playlist, Lightning Crashes by Live starts to play, and Van says, "This is my favorite song." If you like all these outrageously well-selected needle drops, there is an official Yellowjackets playlist on Spotify, and there's just so many good choices on there. So they begin to dance. Misty realizes that it's snowing, and they start to kind of have this party, and it seems like really good bonding, this freedom between them. But in the past, Kid Misty starts humming the song. Because of what comes next, it seems unlikely to me that they would connect that song to something good.
Right.
In the future.
Why would you do that?
But there's this idea that those things could be happening at the same time, and the song is almost kind of leaking through that ether between the two timelines. Is very interesting to me. So Misty hums a song. Shauna freaks the fuck out. She's like, "Where did you hear that song?
Why are you doing that?
Why are you singing that?" And then she's like, "You killed my baby." She slaps Misty. She's biting Van. Like, her rage is just, it's overflowing at this point. And Lottie, as the martyr that she is, she turns to Shauna. Shauna punches her in the face. Lottie wipes her nose. She tells Harvey and Travis to leave. Says, "Travis, take Harvey to the bedroom." Doesn't want to see this. And she tells Shauna, "You want to get this rage out. We need you here, not like this. We need you here present. We need you here in a way that you can help us. We need you. You survived. The baby didn't survive. You need to be here." So Shauna understands the very bleak implications of this and just beats the shit out of Lottie.
That was brutal.
It is
really,
so brutal.
to the point where I'm watching this and going, how does she live through? There's no medical care out there. I'm like, you could die from this.
I felt like, I think they know where we're all at with fan theories and everything, right?
Yeah.
Because it is so bad that when Shauna rolls off of Lottie looks dead.
She
The
looks dead.
prosthetics are unbelievable. Her face is just absolutely swollen and cut. And Lottie she never fought back. This scene made me cry because it's very intense, but also there is this unbelievably weird emotional self-sacrifice that Lottie is taking here, and she just takes it. It's really just upsetting to watch. And you think Lottie's dead, and Shauna shakes her, and I felt like they would probably leave it there. Mm-hmm. And that's your cliffhanger. But it's Lottie. She's probably magic. She takes this kind of staggering breath just before it cuts to black and spits blood from between her broken teeth. And Shauna goes outside and ices her bleeding knuckles. And it's just incredibly bleak stuff. And you'd think that was where the episode would end, because it was so horrific and shocking and you sort of can't really take any more. But no. The show still wants you to have an anxiety attack, still wants Shauna to have an anxiety attack, wants to leave you on edge as possible. So Jeff, another brilliant Jeff moment, he calls Camp Green Pine and very aware that his phone may be bugged.
Good. This is a good call by Jeff.
Very good call by Jeff. He says, "Hey, Shauna." And Shauna, in a good mum moment, says, "How's Callie? Did something happen?" No. "Hey, Shauna. So some bad news. Remember that guy that you got into a crash with and he was missing?
Yeah.
And the police were interested in him? Well, it turns out they found his remains.
Yeah.
Remember him, Adam? We didn't have anything to do with it, but sounds like they found him in this park. Cool. Have a good trip. Bye." Incredible. And that's the end of the episode. So Adam's remains are now in play, guys.
I feel like we got some, as you mentioned, some really good evidence for either the present timeline is happening first somehow, or they're happening at the same time, and these are two versions of the same people who are being informed by the events in the other timeline.
Very
somehow.
looperish. Like somehow there is a correlation between what is happening in both timelines. I'm so interested. There is 2 episodes left of this season. We have ended up in an outrageous situation where we have 2 episodes left of this and 2 episodes left of Succession. I don't know how they're going to wrap it up.
I have zero ability to call this
I could not make a
both
bet.
shows.
I would not
honestly.
be on Market Moves. Both shows, I would love to know. I mean, there was that great video that you shared in our pre-pro chat where you were like, it was the guy who plays Carl from Succession, and he's like, "You will never guess.
You will never guess how it ends. You may have an idea of what you think, and you go, oh, I thought so, but not really."
Which leads me to believe that everything that we have guessed at is completely
wrong. Yeah, I know. And I feel like Succession has that tendency too. I mean, Yellowjackets has that potential too, where there's so much that they have to do in 2 episodes. They have to wrap certain things up, but they also have to set up conflict for the 3rd season. They have to give us a certain amount of answers so that people will stay invested, but they also have to leave us with a lot of questions. So it's going to be a really interesting next couple of weeks.
That's going to be incredible. Up next, Nerd Out.
In today's Nerd Out, where you tell us what you love and why, or a theory that you're excited to share, Nick shares a bloody Yellowjackets theory.
Nick says, "This came to mind hearing your theory that Shauna's nosebleed landing on the symbol was related to the birds falling to their deaths. Misty suggests it is related to the iron in the ground, what is known for its iron content, blood, which we have been seeing a lot of symbolism around. Could that be the link? Also, when you're pregnant, like Shauna, you also need more iron than normal. Could be part of a supernatural explanation for some of the strange happenings as the show progresses, but this might not explain the significance of the symbol. Do the symbols point to iron-rich or light areas or something?" Okay, that's probably a stretch, but still. Nick, this is very interesting.
This is very interesting.
I have been thinking more and more about the symbols, and this is based on nothing other than our own navel gazing, but I have been trying to decipher the symbol as a kind of pictorial representation of intersecting timelines. You have like one timeline coming in this way, you have other ones coming in this way, and then they all meet in the middle somehow. Is that it? I don't know, but seeing that symbol, let me ask you this. This is going back an episode. There's that pull-out shot of Lottie's cult camp, and we see that the chairs in this outdoor kind of arena are set up in the shape of the symbol. Do you think she did that on purpose?
Yeah, I mean, I noticed this week, and they actually use, they have little symbol, like necklaces with the symbol on, if they're in her cult. So I think that leans into Lottie's idea that it's some kind of protection. But how much does she realize that could be happening on like a grander scale at the cult? I'm very interested in. I also think this theory is interesting because I feel like the symbol is something they have to answer this season.
Yes.
And the iron thing is interesting because Lottie says that the symbol is for protection, and in like medieval folklore and also like fantasy, iron is always something that was used against magic or to protect against witches and stuff. So maybe there's something in there with the blood and the iron content and kind of how that may be impacting the girls. Though I will also say I do think both of us have moved away from the more logical explanations that we used to think, like is it an iron rich area and they're hallucinating based on what they're eating out of the ground? Like, is it an army base? I still think I would be very surprised if that was the route they went at this point, because I feel like they're doing so much supernatural adjacent work. Though I will say I think it would be a stretch, and I think they would have to really commit to it in a very deep and serious way that would probably take a whole season. I do think there is a version of this show where it's just about the impact of trauma. And there's actually nothing supernatural and there's nothing weird. It's just how they experience that terrifying time and how that kind of bleeds into their daily life now. But I think that would be you'd have to take almost like a Barry level switch to be able to explain that away, I feel like.
Thinking about the iron and this, one of the things I've been wondering, there's, in fairy folklore, there's in various cultures that have like fairy folklore. Like one of the facets of fairy folklore is that they'll throw this huge feast and a party for people, and if you eat their wonderful food, then all of a sudden you are trapped
like
by
Greek
them.
mythology too.
Yeah.
Who eats the pomegranate? You end up trapped in the world of the dead.
And I don't know if a fairy thing is going on, but it does feel like, certainly with the imagery around the initial cannibal incident, it does feel like they have eaten of this magical feast and now are trapped somehow. Yeah. What does that mean? I don't know, but it feels... I increasingly think it just has to be supernatural.
I think so too. And also, if we're going back to the symbol, I think you could say the symbol does look like a fairy. The dress with all the different things coming out of it. I would love for them to do... I love like hard fantasy stuff like that. There's this great series of books by Holly Black set in like the world of the Fae folk, and that taught me a lot about those kind of rules and things like, iron being used to repel fairies. And I would absolutely love if they did like a big swing, like scary, the Antler Queen is a fairy, and this was them kind of taking part in this feast of the Fae who do eat humans, who have this terrifying kind of thing, and they are now part of that world and kind of partially half in, half out of that world. Would also work as a kind of version of our Final Destination theory, where they're basically stuck in between two worlds and are being hunted down by something from both. I'm in. Now that's it. Yellowjackets fairy show. I'm into it. That's my headcanon now. It's all fairies.
Thanks so much, Nick.
If you have theories and passions you want to share, hit us up, xray@crooked.com. Instructions in the show notes.
That's it for us. Rosie, any plugs? Plugs.
You can find me here twice a week. You can find me at Rosie Marks on Letterboxd and Instagram. I have a really cool newsletter that I run called Rosie Recommends, where I recommend cool stuff. And once again, as I will be doing, I'm sure we will be doing until the end of the strike, which does not look like it is in view anytime soon, I am saying support the WGA. Jason is a member. These are the people who make these shows that we love. These are people who enable us to go on these incredible journeys. And for a lot of us, that's something that we would want to join one day too. We want to tell those stories, and they're fighting for us. You can join the picket lines. They shared the picket lines for this week on their social media, WGA East and WGA West. And yeah, support. You can support at the Entertainment Community Fund to help writers who are currently on strike and not earning money. And you can share posts, share social media posts, share news, let people know that you support the people who make these shows.
Catch the next episode of X-Ray Vision on Friday, May 19th. We're going to be discussing video games. If you're anything like either of us, then your ability to be a productive member of society has taken a major hit with the release of Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, which is currently entrancing millions, hundreds of millions around the globe. Star Wars Jedi Survivor. We're going to be talking about the upcoming release of Diablo 4. We're going to be talking about all the games we're playing. We're going to be talking about Dead Island 2. We're going to be talking about all the stuff that we are playing right now. It's a great time for video games.
And I'm going to actually add a plug. If you are someone who's like, oh, I really want to play Zelda, I have a Switch, but it's $70. Guess what? If you are part of Nintendo Switch Online, which I'm guessing most people are because you need it to play online, you can buy game vouchers that allow you to buy 2 games for $50 each. So it costs like $100, but you can buy any 2 games and it means that they cost $50. So you can get $20 off Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Obviously, only spend your game voucher on a game that costs $50 or up. But for Zelda, that's a big change because this is one of our first ever $69.99 games. And it's worth every penny.
Subscribe to us on YouTube where you can watch full episodes of the show and check out our Discord to meet and hang out with tons of amazing fans and listeners. Plus, Rosie and I, we're there. We're discussing stuff with you. We're doing all of that. 5-star ratings, 5-star reviews.
Five.
We got to have them. You got to give them to us. Here is one from Tandy T. Yay! You guys are great. Thank you. I wrote a long thing about how great this pod is, then felt weird and deleted it and posted this instead. 15 out of 10 recommend. Thank you, Tandy T.
Thank you. Relatable. Appreciate you.
See y'all next time.